Namaste, and welcome to Beyond the Bindis Hindu Women's Festival 2021. My name is Akshaya, and it gives me great privilege to be a part of this festival, exploring the topic of femininity in Indian classical dance. I'm incredibly honored to be joined by one of my own dance teachers in the UK here today, Anusha Subramanyam. In our tradition of Bharatnatyam, we daringly call our gurus and teachers Akka, which means big sister in Tamil. So Anushaka is a dancer, choreographer, teacher, and dance movement therapist. Now she graduated from the prestigious Kalakshetra College of Fine Arts in India and undertook further training under notable gurus such as Leela Samson and more. Upon coming to the UK, she was one of the first exponents to establish Bharatnatyam in the UK, and in fact was one of the core team members involved in formalizing the teaching of Bharatnatyam in the UK. She was the subject leader for the Center of Advanced Training in Bharatnatyam for over a decade and is the founder and director of Beeja Dance, a company dedicated to working towards a collective and drawing on the skills of all its members to develop a unique way of working, offering an all round of experience of dance both in and outside the field of Bharatnatyam. Namaste and welcome to this panel today, Akka.
Namaste, namaskaram, Akshaya. So lovely to be here with you.
Thank you, Akka. Likewise. And, I'm looking forward to this conversation with you today. So, we're just going to dive straight into it because I've had the privilege of knowing you and learning from you over the last few years. But for our audience here today, could you tell us a little bit about your journey as a Bharatnatyam dancer? What inspired you to take up this art form, Akka, and take it up professionally? And how has your relationship with Bharatnatyam evolved over the years?
Well, that's a big question, and um, one that I think continues to delight me and challenge me. So, what inspired me to take up Bharatanatyam? You know this as a Tamil girl, perhaps we don't have a choice in some ways. And I'm not saying this as um, that my parents forced me, not at all. But I was just very lucky. My mother is a singer and a performer and a dancer herself. And my father, in fact, I would say more than my father is my inspiration too, because Appa continues to really love the classical arts. So from morning till night, either Amma was singing or Appa would have the, All India radio on, listening to various kacheris. So it was something that was very much present in my home. So I think it was just inevitable um, that love just grew in me. And when I think of dance, now there is so much of internet, and you see so much of work. But in those days, and my father was in a traveling job, so he was posted in so many different places. So we lived mostly in North India, and so for the viewers, just to say. I want to actually say namaste to all the viewers, and so lovely and delightful to have this conversation with my dear Akshaya. So just to let you all know that I grew up and I, I developed both as an artist and as a person in India, and of course I continue to develop and continue to hone my skills as an artist in the UK too. But they were, I think, when we talk about classical arts, I think definitely India was my root. As a child, traveling with my parents, because my mother was in the arts, it just it filled my life on a day-to-day basis. So I would say initially it was not Bharatanatyam, it was dance, it was arts, because we traveled a lot. All the local, whether it was the Assamese folk form or the Punjabi, the Bhangra and the Gidda. So just movement and creativity really filled me a lot. And of course, there were few dancers. So Vaijanti Mala Bali, Padma Subramanyam. I remember my mother used to read Tamil magazines. So wherever her photograph was, I used to cut it. And, she became my poster girl, as it were, on my room, my table, my desks, and stuff like that. And in school, I took part in everything. I never said no to anything. So whether it was dance, folk dance, elocution, it just, whatever teacher would say, who will do it? I always raise my hand. So I think that sense of, um, that sense of living life with the arts was something that was, yeah, always part of me. I think there were a couple of stories and certain literature that I read, and I don't quite remember exactly the title of these stories, but they were stories about how children developed into phenomenal people through the arts or through music. So that was something that I always, in my mind was a more than as a dancer. I wanted to uh, be part of something that will continue to help me grow as a person. And my mother, she saw me dance when I was about, she always saw me dance, but she came to a couple of my annual shows in school, which I had actually created, and I was leading both as a dancer and as a maker. And so she said, "Oh my God, I didn't know you could dance so well." She said to me, because my father's side, in those days, they were not so much into the arts as much as my mother's side, except for my father. So she said, I didn't think, you would take to arts as much." And so she was very surprised, and she, since then, encouraged me and said to me, "I think you should go to Kalakshetra," which is, as you know, and those of you who don't know, is a very special institution for the arts, founded by Rukmini Devi Arundale. It, it also not only nurtured the arts, which is Bharatanatyam, music, Carnatic music, both vocal and instrumental, the tanjore painting, so visual arts. But also Ati was very much instrumental in bringing, she was the president of the Vegetarian Society. She revived lots of the traditional crafts in India, like the kalamkari work, the woven sari that is now become so popular, the silk saris. So there's a weaving department at Kalakshetra. Madame Montessori came and stayed in Kalakshetra for many years. And I think a lot of her ideas were developed there, which, if people don't know about this. So in fact, there's a Madame Montessori cottage in Kalakshetra as well. So I think, moving from my parents' home into Kalakshetra, and that I think Kalakshetra really changed my entire life, as it were, um, because it gave value to the person, the being. Um, I think I really blossomed there um, to to just rejoice in everything arts can bring, and to think what else can it do. And because it transformed my life and it touched my life in so many different ways, um, I think And I mean, right now, I'm not sure how articulate I am, but I'm not sure these were conscious, decisions, but it was a very intuitive decision that I wanted to use dance um, in ways that can help other people also. Uh, when I say the word transform, it's about, this is what I find when I move. I feel I'm very alive when I move. And I also feel that there's something very deep that gets gets connected to me, that is very big. So it's all universal. So whether you call it, I mean, divine or, well, but for me, it's the universe that I feel connected to, um, all of it. And so that was a very, um, yeah. And even now, when I talk about it, I'm not sure um, how to express it other than by moving. uh, you know, um, but I know that over time that I've worked with the body, whether it's in the yoga tradition or in the contemporary dance tradition, or I've done some workshops in Bhutto. So it doesn't matter which movement tradition, there is something about our there is something about the experience of being alive that I think movement brings into our um, very conscious experience. And I think that when you touch, when you get in touch with it, it's very exciting, and very powerful. Uh, um, so I don't know if that answers your question. Um, I mean, very quickly, what I will say is, so that kind of intuition, that kind of wanting to continuously understand what is it in the movement, um, that that magic happens for me and for people who I share that as a performer or as a teacher. And that's the journey I've done. So I I I, I was in Kalakshetra for 3 years. Then I was very lucky to find my guru, Leela Sampson, who, uh, you know, uh, she's an extraordinary artist and a person. And she actually, I would say, opened up those inner spaces much more, to be alive to possibilities of um, the art of movement, but also the art of aesthetics. Um, um, so, and that then, and because my mother was a teacher as well, and she was working in special needs herself, so I always followed her wherever she went, whether it was a rural school or a special needs school, or with rural teachers. And she's my mother is an absolute genius in terms of, she's very intuitive. She can just bring people alive because she sings stunningly. um, I saw her very quickly, make people sing and dance, and she will, create performances out of nothing. And that, I think, again, it was intuitive, it was not conscious, but I think all that really excited me, inspired me. And in some ways, I feel I'm not doing anything different from what Amma did. It's just in much more of an extension. And because, I mean, she didn't live in the professional dance world. I do, and I now live in the UK. So it's a different kind of, in some ways, a different journey, but it's kind of not that different. So, because of my mother's involvement in arts education, um, I just very naturally moved into wanting to explore movement with people who were visually impaired or who had cerebral palsy. I met Vipul Sangui, my wonderful husband, as you know, who's an artist himself. He's a photographer, filmmaker, communication designer. Um, and so during this time, I met him, and he always told me, what you're doing is something very unique. And in those days, there were not many people who were working in this way. And I had to also say, I have another very dear friend, Tripura Kashyap, who's a very well-known dance therapist in India. She inspired me a lot, because she had trained as a dance therapist by then in America, and had come back to India. And she took me to few places when she was doing workshops. And I thought, this is something I want to explore. Um, and at that time, for me, the exploration was much more about what South Asian dance can do, and particularly Bharatnatyam and folk styles. For me, folk dance is something that I grew up with, and I really feel, and in fact, I feel now Bollywood has, almost taken uh,
Absolutely.
yeah, absolutely,
Change the
it's
course.
substituted for a folk. But there is something very, immediate, something so visceral, something that you can just, feel the whole body move in ways uh, um, that you can free yourself very quickly, unlike in Bharatanatyam, where you have to first train a lot, and then you have to forget your training and then free yourself. So in folk and Bollywood, you can, kind of do that. And so that was my, I suppose, I'm still journeying in that. The fact that, how what is this the energy and the life of any movement, what does it do to me, and what can it do for somebody else. um, and so I came to the UK. I trained here as a dance therapist. I was very lucky to meet lots of wonderful people who kept on saying, oh, nobody's doing this, Anusha, can you come and do a project with us? And I didn't intend to stay here, but it just, one thing led to the other. I was working in a hospital. I worked in psychiatric day centers. uh, and it was really um, quite um, exciting, because I was learning so much. I had the opportunity to dialogue with different artists, but also I was dialoguing with my dance form. What is it about Bharatanatyam? What is it about the experience as a dancer I had and I was having, and how could it inform the work that I was doing with everyone. And and I think one of the other things I have to tell you, Akshaya, is more than the movement. I mean, I think it's symbiotic, but I think one of the things about movement, again, it's a very much a thought that I have been dialoguing with myself for a while now. um, I think in movement, you are experiencing something that in some ways is your inner experience. So it doesn't matter what you do, no? Like whatever movement you do or you move, there is a very felt experience within us. And to me, that is a very spiritual experience. And it is something I feel, as I said, it really feels to me that it connects me to everything. And in that, I felt uh, that was my offering to wherever I went, whatever I made. It was that a very simple idea of that all of us are connected in movement. Um, yeah.
Yeah.
So,
It's a very deep experience that you've shared, Akka, with dance. Almost you've broken that shell that we call our body, and what links you and I beyond this shell is that movement. That something is deep, and I can only imagine, because I've only probably touched a mere glimpse of what you've experienced your whole life with my limited experience, but I can definitely resonate with what you've said, and I'm sure our audience can actually understand. If not, I'm sure they are probably very curious to experience this, what you've been sharing with us. And so, Akka, I want to dive a little bit into one of the aspects of Bharatnatyam. So, you talked a lot about movement, and in Bharatnatyam, I guess I've learned it as two elements that come together. So, one is the nritta, which is the technical movement or the technical vocabulary, and the other is abhinaya, so the expression. So, Akka, if we look at abhinaya a little bit, could you tell us a little bit about the power of expression, or how that comes in form in these classical dance forms?
ah, so if the first thing I would say is, for me, they are not two different things.
Okay.
Nritta and Abhinaya are are just, you know, perhaps two dimensions of
Mm.
of experiencing again who we are.
Mm.
So I think I keep coming back to that, you
Absolutely.
know, and and I think, when you said limited experience, I think to experience who we are, we don't need experience. We just need to be alive,
Mm.
you know. I think to have information, we need experience, but to just feel alive, we just have to, stand up. Like, come on, I just say, come on, like Akshaya, let's stand up and do, just a tattadu or just jump, and that's it. um, so I think, I think, you know the Indic culture, and in particular, um, India, in this aspect, um, I think, knew this sense of experience very deeply. I think, and it's a culture which has what, um, 5 to 10,000 years of history.
Mhm.
So I think, and whether they are the artists or the seers, I think they were all seeking this, this sense of liveness, um, and because, I'm saying the word seek, because when you seek, it's an internal feeling,
Mm.
and therefore everything has to come from within ourselves, from our experience. And therefore, that's why I feel, nritta and abhinaya are not two different things.
Two dimensions.
um, of course, nritta, as we define, it's movement. When I if I do this or this, with my hands, but I still need to experience it. I need to feel the movement.
Mm.
um, and therefore there's a sense of presence, and there's a sense of embodying my experience within that movement. And the minute that happens, for me, it is abhinaya. Of course, we also understand abhinaya as emotive or narrative expression.
Mm.
So the word abhinaya itself, as we know, means to lead somebody towards. So to lead somebody towards an understanding of a narrative or a literature or a mood or, a situation.
Mm.
So therefore, uh, that often we, contextualize abhinaya within that framework. So within that framework as well, I think, um, it's so much about our human experience. So and if we take Bharatanatyam, we have a lot of literature that is woven in repertoires like Varnam and Ashtapadis and Padams. And if you look at um, that, it's a real narrative around human condition, human situations, um, what you, I, and the the viewers feel, um, and the poetry that is used for that
Mm.
is so rich in imagery, yeah, um, and so it gives, I think, the artist um a way to journey through to understand one's own experience. And sometimes you don't have to experience all the situations, but there's a way then you continue to explore how that situation or that condition or that psychological um, experience happens in that poem. And then you explore it for yourself, really more like an actor would do. Uh, and then you present it in movement and using as much of not only um, our whole body to emote that, but certainly the face. You know, we the one of the specialities of classical arts, the Indian classical arts, is really uh, the strength of how we use um, our um, our facial expression. And this is not different from how people in India also emote.
Mhm. It's very much a
So
mirror
it's
of the society, isn't it? A little.
yeah, totally. It's natural.
Mhm.
Um, I have to tell you once, because in the UK, maybe now I don't know if there's these conversations happen, but for a long time people would say, "Oh, if you're emoting with your face, then you're doing mime, or it's a caricature." And I used to think, no, this is not a caricature. This is how I speak. How can it be a caricature? Because this is how I speak. And in India, I remember, like, and so every time I would go to India, I would, and particularly in different parts of India, I would either go and meet somebody from the rural India, or somebody who, workers, and sit with them and talk to them and really notice, how they're using their hands and their face. And always I came back to this feeling that this is how we move. And so I remember this so clearly. Um, Another teacher I trained with for a very long time and continue to do so is C.V. Chandrasekhar sir. And one day he wasn't, uh, he had gone out or something, or I was early for class. Sir was not there. And it's the maid who works in their house. She had also come. So she was sitting on the veranda. So I went and sat with her. So I asked her, Enama, engenu? And she then started talking. She used her hands and her face. And Terima, and she used all the gestures. And I remember this so well, because when I was watching her, this kept on coming, what is Abhinaya? What is the, um, is she a caricature? Is she a miming? Then I realized, no, she's just being very natural in the way she speaks. So I think the experience of Abhinaya, particular to Bharatanatyam, is very particular to the Southern Indian culture of movement using hands and facial expression, and how we express. Um, and I think in a very spiritual way, I think it is again another way of experience the humanity of ourselves and the humanity that we are surrounded by, that we talk about through these poems. And when I say humanity, I don't mean only humans, you know, I mean everything. Correct. So if you think about like uh, say for example, you think of a Naika who's full of love, and Mugdha Naika, and she's eagerly waiting at that time in the poetry. And if it is not explicit, as an artist, you would conjure these images. You would look at all in everything in the environment, the full moon, the breeze. It's all cooling, and it's all exciting the emotions further. The heroine or the Naika, she's really, the eagerness is there. If the Naika or the heroine, is very sad, and she is not sure if the hero is going to come, and she's in viraham, or you know just sad, then all this will depress her. um, and if she's in anger, or she is um, there is a sense of frustration in her, all that in the environment will echo in a similar way. And the very famous Japanese director, um, what's his name, Koras, I shouldn't say it wrong. See these Japanese name, but I've been watching his films for a while now. During the pandemic last year, I watched. He's one of the kind of iconic Japanese filmmaker, and after watching some of his films, because I watched excerpts of his films, not all the films. Then of course YouTube then tells go watch this. And it was so fascinating because he uses nature in how his characters portray a certain emotion.
Absolutely.
So whether it's the rain, it's the wind, and that's very true of Bharatnatyam, Abhinaya, that when you're dealing with any of the poetry, that as an artist we look at the state of the character and how the environment around us is. So in that way, I feel that as a dancer, as an artist, as a mover, we have that experience of humanity in a way that perhaps might be different in other dance, or maybe not, but definitely the tools that we use, they are different.
No, absolutely, Akka, because I remember learning Manavi Chekona Varnam, and like that second line, Mamata Meri Yunnan, it means a separation. It's almost like the breeze has gone cold, the bees are stinging her, and she's going in search of Shiva. And now that, you're reminding me of this conversation, it almost brings me back to appreciate that we are not different to our nature. And actually, Akka, you talked about the heroine or the Naika. So, what are the range of emotions that a Naika can express? So, in our literature, are women often portrayed in a certain, like damsel in distress type situation? Or actually, is there a range of characters that we have seen through Bharatnatyam?
Well, I think it is the range, and like any art form, Bharatanatyam is constantly developing
Mm.
and constantly. I see artists, and right now, thanks to the digital media as well, there's just so many dance artists, Akshaya. Um, I- you know, People who are well known, younger artists, everybody is exploring ideas of how to reimagine um, our place in the world, not only in the world of dance, but really in the world, as female artists, but also I think the question and questioning, what does it mean to be female? What does it mean to be feminine? Um, and how do you give voice, perhaps to um, things that are happening today in the world, and things that are important to each one of us in different ways. So I think that's definitely happening a lot. And people are also doing a lot of research and, finding new literature that that might place the female heroine or the main character in the context that uh, an artist wants to see them in. Um, so yeah, I think um, there is there is no limit to what uh, any one of us wants to do as an artist. And I would say this, what is really exciting, and I keep saying this to you, you're one of my inspiration as a dancer, as a young person, who is not only continuing to keep your art alive, but you're also a doctor, you're also, you're a medic. um, and I see this in today's world, the young artists, the young dancers, or musicians, but we will just stick to dancers. I'm very inspired by them, because each one is continuously demanding of themselves, you know so much. Maybe because of the media, everything is available, so we are all looking at so much material, and so perhaps we are all being inspired by each other. But I really feel that what I see today in the world of Bharatanatyam, in the world of South Asian dance, it's very exciting. There is no, yeah, there is uh, no silos, no boxes um, that exist, only the ones that we put ourselves into.
Absolutely. Naka, that is so true. And actually, can you think back? So we're focusing on, if we just focus on, female characterization, can you think back, typically when we say women and dance, or, when we imagine a story, it's often, male hero comes, female lover falls in love, and, that kind of dynamic can take place. But at least I can remember from when I've learned, you've had the range of naikas, where you have Abhisarika, where the naika goes in search of the hero in the middle of the night. You have Kandita, where, you fully shunning the hero. And you have, the different layers. But are there any particular pieces, or even one or two lines you can show for us, where a woman is showed in a different light, whether that's a mother or whether that's a different character, a deity, that you'd like to show our audience today to show that feminine power and energy within Bharatnatyam?
Well, I think power is there all the time. It's
Absolutely.
how I think each one of us feel um, our own role.
Hmm.
I think how we see our own femininity, how we see who we are for ourselves, I think that makes a lot of difference in the kind of way we feel the weakness or the power. You know, um, so even a simple padam like Dari Juchu Chinnati Neetu priya dari juchu chin di neetu. So what is this is a friend telling Krishna that my lovely young friend, she's in love with you. Please, will you not go to her? So for me, this is equally a strong character. It's not a weak character, um, because this is love. This is um, when I hear either, I mean, now pandemic, I'm not traveling that much, or rather not at all. but I remember when in my travels, I've heard young girls speak on the phone or next to a friend to talk about their their relationship, and can you go and tell. So these are a love is never going away, and how we each one of us experience love is kind of in some ways similar too. um, Perhaps today, Dari Juchu, I might not be standing on the road waiting. So that perhaps, if we take literal, that has changed, or maybe not. Maybe I might not stand, I mean, UK being UK, I might not stand on the road, but I might open the curtain and keep gazing at the road. So, so I really feel that, at least from my experience, I feel to clothe uh, this poetry in constantly to try and pull the poetry of a certain context into today's world all the time, I feel can take away from the beauty of that poetry. I might not behave as that Naika, but it does not mean that that Naika is a weak Naika.
Absolutely, because the context is important, like you said, isn't it?
Yeah, and also, I mean, of course, now there's much more gender fluidity. There are a lot of women and men, and I might look like a woman, but I might not consider myself as this Naika. To me, that and the poetry, there's no correlationship, because when I'm dancing, I'm not being Anusha. I'm an actor, and I'm creating the character of that context. So it's same thing. I mean, especially in the UK, half the time you're seeing period drama, because here people love the Tudors and the Victorians. So all these actors, when they are doing that, do you mean that in their own personal lives they are like that? No. So I think we have to be very careful when we look at literature, to look at the strength of that literature. And certainly there are some literature that we can personalize completely, and we feel so close to it, no? And some of it is, as an dancer actor, you're just challenging yourself, like saying, okay, how can I portray this? Or say, for example, Indendu vachi tirera alada. I mean, I don't think so. I'm ever going to do that. You know, even when I was not kind of married, or if the guy doesn't want me, okay, fine, you go. I'm not yeah. So in a way, yeah, I think, um, so if I think of myself as that Naika, in that particular, in those contexts, it might not work. But if I think of, uh, if we talk about in Dendu, there are many times, even now with Vipul or with others, things don't, we don't agree. And then there are times I say, okay, enough, don't talk to me now. So, in terms of understanding, or creating emotions from memories, uh, just to make sure that the the emotiveness of that particular padam is very authentic, that I will do.
Mm.
So, um, the other, some yesterday I was thinking of, perhaps there's a, even a simple thing like chalamela varnam, it's not a naika or a nayak. it's it's an open, it's a, it's one character, a devotee, saying, Chalame, why are you angry? Why are you ignoring me? O Lord Vishnu. Now, when, and I've been teaching this to my students, so just very recently. So I keep reminding them, think of a time when perhaps your friend has ignored you.
Mm.
Because in that verse, it's not clear that, um, we are not saying that Vishnu definitely has ignored. You're creating a conjecture, right? So how do you, when you can't connect to Vishnu or any of these naikas or characters, sometimes, and certainly in the, young dancers, and or when you're first introduced to these kind of abhinayas, I feel what is really exciting is we pull out from our own experience of situations like this. Yesterday, no, I'm not Juma saying, but perhaps the other day when you and I were speaking, you might have taken a pause, or you might have turned your face, and I'm thinking, huh? I'm just talking to Lakshya, and why has she done this? It might just be just simple, just for me to make that feeling, that emotion real. Because
Yeah.
only then abhinaya can be true. Because abhinaya is not mimicking, it's not miming, it is really experiencing set of psychological journey through any given situation, whether you're in love, or um, you have a relation, there's a, if there's a padam or a poem or a kirtanam about a mother, motherhood, um, or uh, there are two sakhis speaking to each other, then how do we, where do we draw this from? It has to be from our experience, um, either our personal felt experience, or the literature or the films that we have seen, um, because all of this has to become very real for us,
Absolutely.
for us to be able to convey it
Mm.
to the audience.
Now I remember, Akka, that's actually so powerful what you have taken us through, because whilst the context might be to that period of literature, the emotion that we draw from becomes one that is personal to us. So, in the context of Indendu, I remember learning it as 11-year-old. So my teacher in Singapore was teaching it to me, and it goes right Indendu, like, and that sarcasm, like, why are you here in this house? You've just gone. Have Do you not see the street lights? So go to your other woman. As an 11-year-old, for me to understand that immersion, I could not have. And for me to perform it, I remember my teacher telling me, Akshaya, please go at least fall in love with a dog so that you can know what that disappointment or sarcasm can feel like. And I could not probably express it then as 11, 20-year-old, because that love and that disappointment from love is a very deep feeling. Maybe
Hmm.
today I might be able to express it in a different way. So that deep experience you're talking about, Akka, it's such a powerful, powerful thing. And in that context, I guess, we're running out of time. We can probably go on for hours over this conversation. But we often use the word rasa, that ultimate experience. So what does rasa actually mean, Akka? Or how would you explain rasa?
Oh, that's another big one, isn't it? So I mean, the way I understand rasa is it's an experience that in this context, say for example, we are taking this interview or this conversation that you and I are having. Really, it's not really an interview; it's a conversation. So whatever I am feeling when I'm speaking to you, and what you get from this, that is rasa. And then when this is seen by the audience or by other onlookers, what do they experience? And when what you and I we experience in a moment, if they are connecting to that same experience, that is what I understand as rasa. So when we are dancing, uh, say in Dendu, because you've just done said or talked about in Dendu. So each of that feeling of this character's frustration, her anger, her disappointment in her lover, in I'm saying in her lover in the context of the padam, but the audience, because not every, and we're talking about today's context, today, whether it's UK or India, the global context. So when people are watching that padam, what is it that they take from there, from that padam, is that intensity of this character's frustration, this character's um, anger, her disappointment. That if they take, then that dancer has created rasa. The nuance of every hand gesture or um, the differentiations of characterizations that the dancer might bring, if that is not understood, that's okay. But the emotional content of a piece, if that is translated from the dancer to the audience, then that rasa is created. um, I mean, this is very much to do with, it's not just to do with dance, it's to do with painting, it's the same thing. So when you see a Van Gogh or that very famous monks, that scream. So when you see that, if the artist evokes emotions within us that he or she intended to, then that's what I understand as rasa. Um,
And again, it goes back to that, for us to be able to portray it as a dancer, regardless of whether I'm a male dancer or a female dancer or who I am as Akshaya no longer matters, but looking within and bringing it out, and bringing that deep emotional experience, and
mm,
connecting with my audience. That is
yeah.
what is rasa, isn't it, Akka?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, the minute you, it becomes very real for you. Um, because that's the joy of a dancer or an actor. If it is real for you, it'll be real for the audience. um, and that's when there's a connection that's made between the mover and the one who's witnessing the dance. And when that connection is made, that is what they call rasanubhav. You experience that,
Absolutely.
whatever is got created in that moment.
Now I'm just taken back to some of the dancers that I've watched over the years who have, really invoked that connection. And I know you're performing soon, Akka. So hopefully, for those of us who get an opportunity to watch you and get a taste of what this rasa is or looks like, I hope our dear audience, does tune into some of your future performances, because I know you're. I can say that you're one of my favorite dancers and someone who truly brings that experience to the stage. And so, Akka, we've taken quite a journey in the just last 45 minutes to an hour. And this, we've talked so much about dance, about what it means to, bring out that experience, movement, abhinaya. And we've had a whole journey actually, and I've learned so much from you just in the last hour. But this festival is about, celebrating sustainable narratives and sustainable narratives about womanhood and femininity. Sakat, as a closing message, do you have any words of wisdom for any young dancer out there, or even to our audience listening today?
Well, I'm not sure words of wisdom, but I can
Of course,
certainly
Akka.
share. I I think I think the best thing is to always be true to your journey, and never give up. Never give up. Uh, and just continuing doing whatever you love doing. So if it's dance that is 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 there's a spark and there's something that really speaks, then continue to move, continue to dance, and something will emerge. How can it not? I mean, for me, that's the magic of life. You look around, if we take out all our emotional psychological drama, which we call life, if we look at no, but if we just look at life, uh, it's so splendid, it's so magical, and it's constantly growing, it's constantly expanding. I mean, right now it's springtime. It's so true. No, doesn't matter what you put a little bit of seed, it grows. It's phenomenal. And during winter, things are, it's getting ready. So I think, so for me, that's what I'm not saying that I don't get into my psychological drama, say, oh my God, today I've done so much and nothing's happening. But this is what keeps me going, is when I look at, um, when I'm just watching or just reflecting at life. um, I just feel it's abundant, and it's always giving. It's, yeah, it's always. And all I have to do, and therefore all of us, we have to journey, is to just keep preparing, and then we'll know how to keep receiving. But just remember, it's always giving, always. It's in us to know how to receive and to rejoice. So, say for example, in the UK, I'm not able to do so much classical work, which if I was in India, I might be able to. Um, but I've done another journey as an artist, which is so exciting. And, for all the challenges UK has given me, um, the challenges are actually my path to learning and experiencing dance in a way that I might never have experienced in India. It's not to say that this is a better journey or that is, no. This is what has been my journey. That's all. So I think if we all rejoice and celebrate each one of our journey as that that as unique, and I think um, we will continue to celebrate ourselves and celebrate each other.
That's a lovely, lovely message, Akka, and I'm sure you've taken, with everyone you've inspired, myself being included. You've taken your culture, your tradition, and imparted it in seeds that is now growing in the UK. So thank you so much, Akka, for once again, taking us on a journey in this panel today, and for sharing this conversation with me. It definitely has been my pleasure and my privilege. And As to my dear audience, I hope you're looking forward to the rest of the panels in this Hindu Women's Festival. There are a range of topics from leadership to empowerment to the arts to language. And so this entire week is going to be a celebration of womanhood and femininity. I certainly will be tuning into all the panels, and I hope you are too. Thank you once again, Akka. Namaste.
Thank you, Akshaya. Thank you so much for inviting me. And I also say a big thank you to all the viewers who will tune in, and to the festival team as well. Thank you very much. And what a pleasure, as always, to speak with you. And there's something always churns up, and I'm always inspired by our conversations as well. So thank you. Have a lovely week, and happy Women's Day, happy Human Day as well. All of humanity. Let's celebrate everything. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Namaskar.
Namaskar.